Self-worth is the foundation of mental strength, emotional resilience, and personal freedom, yet most people spend their lives searching for it in the wrong places. They chase validation, affection, praise, and recognition, hoping that someone else will finally make them feel complete. But relying on external approval is like building your identity on a fragile glass floor. One crack, one rejection, one silent moment from someone you depended on, and your entire sense of self collapses. To become mentally unshakable, you must learn a profound truth. Self-worth comes from within, not from the attention or approval of others. This shift is not only empowering, it is life-changing, liberating, and deeply transformative. From childhood to adulthood, society conditions us to seek gold stars, good grades, compliments, and applause. We are taught to measure our worth based on performance, appearance, popularity, or productivity. Without realizing it, this external scoreboard becomes the lens through which we evaluate ourselves. And when the world doesn't give us the score we expect, we feel inadequate. But true inner strength begins the moment you stop searching for yourself in the eyes of others. Their reactions no longer dictate your identity. Their silence no longer shakes you. Their opinion no longer becomes your truth. When you stop depending on external approval, you reclaim your power. You stop molding yourself to fit someone else's expectations or shrinking yourself to avoid disapproval. Instead of asking, what do they think of me, you begin asking, what do I think of myself? This shift is not just psychological, it's spiritual. It lifts you from emotional survival mode into self-leadership, where you become the author of your own value. The truth is that no amount of love, praise, or validation from others can fill a void you refuse to fill within yourself. When you don't believe in your own value, even the sweetest words won't heal you. But when you do believe in your worth, even criticism can't break you. Self-worth is the internal anchor that keeps you stable in a world that constantly shifts, judges, compares, and pressures you. With it, you walk differently, speak differently, make decisions differently. You stop settling for crumbs because you know you deserve the whole meal. You stop clinging to situations that drain you because you understand your peace is priceless. You stop searching for someone to complete you because you finally recognize that you were never incomplete to begin with. People often confuse external validation with love. But true love, whether romantic, platonic, or familial, never requires begging, chasing, or proving. Approval-based relationships create dependency. Respect-based relationships create strength. When you need constant reassurance from others, you hand them control over your emotions. But when your reassurance comes from your own internal belief system, no one has the ability to shake your stability. Self-worth is not arrogance. It is not pretending to be perfect. It is the quiet, steady belief that you are enough. It is the recognition that your value does not fluctuate based on someone's bad mood, someone's rejection, or someone's inability to love you properly. To build self-worth from within, you must unlearn the idea that someone else's attention equals your importance. You must remove the belief that being chosen by someone else is proof that you matter. You must let go of the mindset that your voice, needs, or emotions require validation to be legitimate. When you stop tying your worth to how others react, you become untouchable. You become someone who walks into a room not needing approval, but carrying inner dignity. You speak with authenticity rather than fear. You set boundaries without guilt. You express your truth without shrinking. And you choose relationships from a place of confidence rather than desperation. One of the most empowering realizations in life is that not everyone will like you, agree with you, understand you, or appreciate you, and that's perfectly fine. You were never meant to be universally accepted. Your purpose is not to please everyone. Your purpose is to live in alignment with who you truly are. Seeking approval keeps you trapped in a prison of performing. Choosing self-worth gives you wings. When your value is self-generated, rejection doesn't devastate you, it redirects you. Criticism doesn't destroy you, it teaches you. Disconnection doesn't weaken you, it frees you. You stop interpreting someone else's behavior as a measurement of your worth. Instead, you see it as a reflection of their capacity, their mindset, or their emotional maturity. You detach from the outcome because you trust yourself. You trust your heart, you trust your journey, and you trust that you are enough. People naturally respect those who respect themselves. They naturally value those who value themselves. Confidence, authenticity, and self-worth are magnetic. They draw in relationships, opportunities, and environments that match your internal state. But when you rely on others to validate you, you send a message that you are not enough on your own. And people treat you according to the value you project. When you finally understand that your worth is intrinsic, not earned, not given, not determined by anyone, you stop begging for love, attention, or respect. You begin to embody a higher standard of self-respect that influences every interaction, every choice, every moment of your life. You become strong not because the world validates you, but because you validate yourself. What you chase, you immediately put above yourself. This simple truth holds immense power because the moment you pursue something from a place of lack, insecurity, or fear, you unknowingly elevate it higher than your own worth. You give it the authority to define your emotional state, your confidence, and even your identity. When you chase love, attention, respect, or validation, you silently declare that these things hold more value than your own inner sense of wholeness. The more you chase, the more you shrink. The more you reach, the more it runs from you. To become mentally strong, emotionally independent, and irresistibly grounded, you must understand the psychology of chasing and why letting go is the ultimate act of self-respect. Chasing anything with desperation signals to the world and to your own subconscious that you are incomplete without it. Whether it's a person, approval, recognition, or even an opportunity, the energy of chasing communicates one thing: I am not enough unless I have this. That belief instantly lowers your personal power. You place the object of your desire on a pedestal and willingly stand below it. You become the seeker, not the chooser. You become the follower, not the leader of your own life. The problem is not wanting something. The problem is believing that its absence diminishes you. True strength comes from knowing that you desire certain things, but you do not depend on them to feel whole. When you stop chasing, you shift from needing to choosing. You shift from seeking to attracting. You shift from begging to embodying. This shift is magnetic on a psychological and energetic level. People, opportunities, and experiences respond differently to someone who stands in their power rather than runs after something out of fear of losing it. When you chase love, you teach someone that they can take their time with your heart because you're not going anywhere. When you chase attention, you show the world that you don't believe your presence alone is significant. When you chase respect, you reveal that you're willing to earn what should naturally be reciprocated. Chasing always leads to imbalance, and imbalance always leads to unhappiness. The person who chases is always the one who ends up disappointed, drained, or overlooked. One of the most transformational truths in human relationships is that what you pursue from insecurity becomes the very thing that slips from your hands. Not because you don't deserve it, but because you approached it with the wrong energy. People respond instinctively to confidence. They are drawn to calm strength. They trust those who trust themselves. But when someone senses desperation, neediness, or emotional dependence, even subconsciously, they pull away, not because they are cruel, but because human nature gravitates toward balance, not attachment. Chasing creates pressure. Pressure creates resistance. Resistance creates distance. This is why the things you run after often run faster from you. But the moment you stop chasing and start valuing yourself, everything begins to shift. You reclaim your dignity. You reclaim your energy. You reclaim your identity. Instead of proving your worth, you embody it. Instead of waiting for someone to choose you, you choose yourself. It takes enormous strength to stop pursuing something you deeply want. But letting go of the chase is not giving up, it is leveling up. It is recognizing that anything that requires you to abandon yourself is too expensive. It is understanding that anything you have to beg for will never give you peace. It is realizing that the things meant for you will not demand self-betrayal as a price. When you stop chasing, you begin to attract. Attraction does not come from effort, it comes from alignment. It comes from the quiet confidence that says, I am enough as I am. When you hold this energy, your presence becomes powerful. You radiate certainty instead of insecurity. You become unshakable instead of dependent. You stop giving others the power to control your emotions. You stop making someone else's approval the currency through which you measure your value. People can sense the difference between someone who needs them and someone who chooses them. The first creates imbalance. The second creates respect. Respect is born from strength, not pursuit. When you no longer need someone to validate you, they see your worth more clearly. When you no longer chase attention, your silence becomes more meaningful than your efforts. When you no longer run after approval, your authenticity becomes magnetic. This shift doesn't just transform relationships, it transforms your entire life. You stop chasing friendships that drain you. You stop chasing partners who don't appreciate you. You stop chasing opportunities that require you to sacrifice your self-respect. You stop chasing people who are unsure, unavailable, or indifferent. Instead, you invest your energy in growth, purpose, and self-expansion. You become someone who moves with intention, not desperation. Someone who elevates their life by elevating their standards. What you chase, you put above yourself, but what you embody, you naturally attract. When you choose yourself, everything else aligns with that frequency. Love becomes healthier. Relationships become deeper. Opportunities become more aligned. Respect becomes natural. You rise to a level where you no longer need to beg, prove, or pursue. You simply become. Chasing is the language of insecurity. Attraction is the language of strength. And when you finally understand that your value is intrinsic, not granted by another human being, you stop running after things that were never meant to be your source of worth in the first place. Emotional independence is a superpower because it frees you from the invisible chains that bind most people to the moods, behaviors, and approval of others. It is the art of feeling whole without needing anyone to constantly reassure you, validate you, or complete you. It is the strength to stay grounded even when life is chaotic, relationships are uncertain, and circumstances shift without warning. When you are emotionally independent, you are no longer a prisoner of someone else's opinion, presence, absence, or affection. You become the source of your own stability, your own peace, your own fulfillment. This is not coldness, it is freedom. It is the highest form of self-respect. It is the deep and unshakable knowing that your inner world is yours to protect, nourish, and guide. Most people confuse emotional independence with not caring, but the two are completely different. Emotional independence doesn't mean you detach from love, relationships, or meaningful connections. It means you don't collapse when someone disappoints you. It means you don't lose yourself trying to keep someone else. It means your happiness is not dependent on the unpredictable nature of another human being. You can love deeply, but you don't rely on someone else to regulate your emotions. You can be connected but not consumed. You can be supportive but not self-sacrificing. This balance creates the strongest, most authentic version of you. When your emotions are dependent on others, your life becomes a roller coaster. One compliment lifts you. One criticism destroys you. One text message makes your day. One silence ruins your night. You become reactive instead of centered, fragile instead of powerful. Emotional dependence turns other people into the controllers of your peace. It hands them the remote to your feelings. But emotional independence hands that remote back to you. It allows you to experience life without being controlled by it. You become a calm, stable force in a world full of noise and unpredictability. True emotional independence begins with awareness. You must first recognize the places where you have given your emotional power away. Do you rely on someone's attention to feel important? Do you need constant reassurance to feel loved? Do you collapse when someone withdraws or changes? Do you chase approval because you fear being rejected? These patterns are not signs of weakness, they are signs of conditioning. Society teaches us to depend on others for our value, but emotional independence teaches you to depend on yourself for your peace. The most powerful people in the world are not those who dominate others, they are those who master themselves. When you are emotionally independent, you do not react impulsively. You do not take things personally. You do not internalize someone else's chaos as your own responsibility. You learn how to sit with your feelings, understand them, and respond with intention instead of fear. This creates clarity, confidence, and control over your life. You stop being a sponge for other people's emotions. You stop absorbing the energy, anger, or instability of those around you. You remain grounded no matter the storm. Emotional independence also transforms how you show up in relationships. When you don't need someone to complete you, you choose people who complement you. You attract partners who value growth, respect, honesty, and emotional maturity, not because you chase them, but because your self-respect sets the standard. Emotional independence allows you to communicate honestly without fear of losing someone. It allows you to walk away from toxicity because you know loneliness is better than losing yourself. It allows you to love without clinging, give without expecting, and receive without doubting your worth. Many people settle in relationships because their emotional dependence convinces them they cannot survive without someone else. But when you develop emotional independence, you become fearless. You stop staying where you are mistreated. You stop shrinking where you are misunderstood. You stop compromising your values to maintain a connection. You realize that your peace matters more than temporary comfort, and your self-respect matters more than approval. Emotional independence teaches you that you can thrive alone, which means you will never again tolerate being half-loved. A person who is emotionally independent is deep, attractive not only romantically but energetically. They radiate stability, confidence, and inner calm. They do not drain others with constant neediness or insecurity. They uplift, inspire, and influence without trying. People feel safe around someone who doesn't depend on them for happiness. Emotional independence naturally draws respect because it reflects discipline, strength, and emotional intelligence. Developing this superpower requires commitment. It requires learning how to self-soothe, self-validate, and self-regulate. It requires replacing external validation with internal affirmation. It requires understanding that your feelings are your responsibility, not someone else's job to fix. This is one of the most empowering realizations in life. No one can hurt you emotionally without your permission when you are anchored within yourself. People can disappoint you, but they cannot destroy you. They can reject you, but they cannot diminish you. They can leave you, but they cannot take your worth with them. Emotional independence gives you the freedom to live your life with intention instead of fear. It liberates you from the need to be liked, the fear of being alone, and the pressure to meet unrealistic expectations. It allows you to focus on your growth, your purpose, and your dreams. You become someone who moves with clarity and confidence instead of chaos and insecurity. You become someone who chooses love not out of need, but out of genuine connection. You become someone who stands tall even when the world tries to pull you down. This superpower can transform your life in every aspect. It enhances your relationships, boosts your self-esteem, and strengthens your mental and emotional well-being. It makes you resilient in the face of adversity and calm in the presence of uncertainty. Emotional independence is not just a skill, it is a lifestyle, a mindset, a declaration that your inner world belongs to you and you alone. Boundaries teach the world how to treat you because they are the clearest expression of your self-worth, your emotional standards, and the level of respect you require in every relationship. Without boundaries, you become available to everyone's demands, vulnerable to manipulation, and open to experiences that drain your energy instead of elevating it. With boundaries, you send the powerful message: this is who I am, this is what I accept, and this is where I draw the line. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors, doors that you control, doors that open to love, respect, and connection, and doors that close firmly to disrespect, emotional chaos, and people who take without giving. Boundaries are the foundation of a mentally strong, emotionally stable, and self-respecting life. Many people struggle with boundaries because they fear disappointing others, being judged, losing relationships, or appearing difficult. But the truth is that the absence of boundaries costs you more than any temporary discomfort you might feel when enforcing them. When you do not set boundaries, you are essentially saying yes to everything, even the things that harm you. You allow people to take advantage of your kindness because you are afraid to speak up. You tolerate disrespect because you fear rejection. You stay silent because you don't want conflict. But silence is not strength. Compliance is not peace. People cannot know your limits if you never express them. And when you fail to communicate your limits, others will always push them. Setting boundaries is an act of self-love because it protects your emotional energy, your time, your peace, and your dignity. It prevents you from becoming overwhelmed by the demands or expectations of others. It helps you maintain clarity about what matters and what does not. It teaches you to prioritize your mental and emotional well-being over temporary approval or acceptance. Boundaries show the world that you value yourself deeply and that you refuse to be treated as an option, a convenience, or a second thought. Most people fear boundaries because they believe they will push others away. But the reality is the opposite. Boundaries filter your life. They remove the people who only came to take, and they strengthen the bond with those who respect your space, your needs, and your identity. Healthy people appreciate boundaries because they understand that respect is a two-way exchange, not a one-sided sacrifice. Unhealthy people resist boundaries because they benefit the most when you have none. Boundaries don't ruin relationships. Lack of boundaries does. A boundary is simply a clear expression of your reality. It is the ability to say no without guilt, to say yes with intention, to walk away when something feels wrong, and to speak up when something crosses your standards. It is the courage to honor your truth even when others prefer your silence. It is understanding that your peace is more important than pleasing people who never appreciate your efforts. It is recognizing that access to your time, mind, and heart is a privilege, not a right. When you learn to set boundaries, you also learn to heal the parts of you that tolerated too much. You realize that being overly available is not kindness, it is self-neglect. You recognize that saying yes to everyone is not generosity, it is abandoning yourself. You understand that avoiding conflict creates internal conflict, and that peace built on silence is not real peace. Boundaries are the ultimate form of emotional maturity because they require honesty, clarity, and courage. Setting boundaries transforms your relationships. You no longer entertain people who are inconsistent, disrespectful, or emotionally draining. You no longer accept crumbs because you know you deserve the whole loaf. You no longer sacrifice your mental health to keep a connection alive. Boundaries shift your mindset from desperation to discernment. You stop chasing and start choosing. You stop begging and start believing in your worth. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. When you reinforce boundaries consistently, people learn how to treat you. They learn what tone of voice is acceptable, what behavior is tolerable, and what actions will not be permitted. They learn that your kindness is not an invitation for exploitation. They learn that your empathy is not a weakness they can manipulate. They learn that your time is valuable. They learn that your presence is earned, not taken for granted. But boundaries also reshape the relationship you have with yourself. Every time you honor a boundary, you strengthen your self-trust. You prove to yourself that you are willing to protect your peace. You demonstrate that you value yourself enough to walk away from what does not align. You build self-esteem because you stop betraying yourself for the comfort of others. You stop apologizing for having needs, feelings, and standards. You stop abandoning yourself for the sake of belonging. The beauty of boundaries is that they allow you to experience love without losing yourself. They help you maintain individuality in relationships. They create safety and respect. They deepen intimacy by encouraging honesty and understanding. Boundaries give you the courage to show up authentically because you know you won't tolerate mistreatment. You no longer fear vulnerability because you are protected by your own standards. Boundaries also elevate your energy. When you stop giving your time to people who drain you, you create space for people who inspire you. When you stop tolerating behavior that hurts you, you make room for connections that heal you. When you stop allowing chaos in your life, you invite peace. When you stop accepting less than you deserve, you raise your frequency. This energetic shift attracts healthier relationships, better opportunities, and deeper fulfillment. Boundaries are not selfish, they are essential. They are a declaration that your life, your heart, and your mind are sacred. They are the blueprint for a healthier, stronger, wiser version of you. They are the invisible armor that protects your emotional well-being and the visible proof of your self-worth. They are the key to living a life where you are respected, valued, and understood. Elevate yourself until what you wanted begins to seek you. Because the most powerful transformation you can experience is becoming the version of yourself who naturally attracts what you once chased. Instead of begging for love, approval, connection, respect, or opportunities, you rise into a higher level of self-worth, purpose, and confidence where the things aligned with your growth are drawn to you effortlessly. When you elevate yourself, you stop pursuing what drains you and start magnetizing what matches your energy. You evolve from seeking validation to embodying value, from waiting to becoming, from desperation to personal power. Elevation is not about being better than others. It is about becoming better than your past self. It is the evolution of your mind, your habits, your standards, and your entire identity. Elevation begins internally. It starts with the decision to stop living on the level of survival, insecurity, and self-doubt. It demands that you look honestly at the parts of your life where you have settled, lowered your standards, or accepted less than you deserve. When you elevate yourself, you choose growth over comfort, healing over repeating cycles, and self-respect over temporary emotional relief. You stop asking why people don't choose you and start asking why you haven't chosen yourself fully. You stop wondering why certain relationships don't value you and start understanding that you have outgrown environments that can't match your rising energy. The truth is simple. When you upgrade your mindset, your life upgrades with it. When you elevate your standards, your relationships transform. When you elevate your habits, your identity transforms. When you elevate your self-belief, opportunities naturally unfold. Elevation is a magnetic force because it shifts your frequency. You begin to operate from a place of certainty instead of fear, purpose instead of insecurity, abundance instead of lack. This is why the things you once begged for start appearing without force. They recognize your energy. They resonate with your strength. They align with your evolution. People often chase love because they feel incomplete. They chase respect because they doubt their own worth. They chase attention because they have not yet seen the power of their presence. But when you elevate yourself, you no longer beg for what is meant for you. You no longer participate in dynamics that require you to shrink. You no longer tolerate connections that drain your spirit. You begin to attract relationships that respect your boundaries, energy, and individuality. You attract people who see your value because you finally see for yourself. Elevation requires discipline. It requires choosing long-term growth over short-term comfort. It requires removing yourself from environments that no longer serve you. It requires silence, solitude, introspection, and the willingness to let go. Elevation happens when you stop giving your energy to people who misuse it. It happens when you stop explaining your worth to those committed to misunderstanding it. It happens when you move from proving to embodying. Instead of trying to convince someone of your value, you become someone whose value speaks without words. When you elevate yourself, your standards rise automatically. You no longer settle for half love, shallow conversations, inconsistent effort, or disrespect disguised as affection. You no longer tolerate friendships that feel one-sided, relationships that feel draining, or environments that limit your potential. You become someone who protects your peace fiercely because you understand how precious your energy is. And this shift sends a message to the world. I am no longer available for anything that disrupts my growth. The most attractive quality a person can have is elevation. Not physical beauty, not perfection, but growth, real, visible, internal growth. People are drawn to those who glow from within, those who radiate self-respect, those who walk with clarity, those who live with purpose. Elevation lights your path. It makes you powerful without arrogance, confident without ego, humble without weakness. When you elevate yourself, you stop chasing people because you become someone people chase. You stop begging for opportunities because you become someone opportunities are designed for. You stop relying on luck because you become aligned with the life you have built through effort, intention, and self-transformation. True elevation also requires emotional maturity. It requires accepting that not everyone can come with you to your next level. It requires letting go of relationships that stay the same while you grow. It requires saying goodbye to habits that comfort you but don't elevate you. It requires walking away from cycles that keep you small. Growth demands release. Evolution requires shedding. You cannot rise while holding tightly to what was meant to be temporary. Elevation also means aligning with your purpose. You stop wasting time on distractions and start focusing on what builds you. You direct your energy intentionally toward your goals, your healing, your passion, and your inner strength. You become more disciplined, more self-aware, and more connected to the life you want. This alignment creates momentum, and momentum creates attraction. What you used to seek begins to gravitate toward you because you are no longer operating from a place of lack. You are operating from a place of abundance, clarity, and inner power. As you elevate, your life begins to feel lighter. Your decisions become clearer. Your intuition becomes stronger. Your relationships become healthier. You attract people who appreciate your value because you no longer allow access to those who don't. You attract environments that support your growth because you refuse to stay in places that stunt it. You attract opportunities that match your skill, passion, and purpose because you show up as someone who is ready, aligned, and deserving. Elevation changes everything: your voice, your presence, your energy, your standards, your boundaries, your purpose, your path. It transforms your inner world so deeply that your external world must adjust accordingly. When you elevate yourself, you step into a higher version of you, and that version becomes the magnet for everything you once thought you had to chase. Becoming mentally strong is not about hardening your heart or distancing yourself from the world. It is about rising into the version of yourself who no longer begs for what should be freely given. When you learn that self-worth comes from within, you stop searching for validation in the reflections of others. When you understand that chasing lowers your value, you reclaim your power by standing firm instead of running after anything or anyone. When you master emotional independence, you no longer collapse under the weight of someone else's behavior or approval. When you enforce boundaries, you teach the world exactly how to treat you. And when you elevate yourself, you naturally attract the love, respect, and opportunities that once seemed out of reach. This entire journey leads to one profound truth. The moment you choose yourself fully, life begins to meet you at that level.